Tonight, on a Nation Sports Show, we break down the latest breaking news in the world of sports. According to reports, Miami Dolphins receiver Tyreek Hill will be facing charges on assault and battery on a 57-year-old man in Miami. Also, we break down the NBA draft from last week. And also, we break down the shocking trade that occurred last week in the NBA as Chris Paul has been traded away to the Golden State Warriors for Jordan Poole. It's showtime.
From the gridiron to the court, talking all that is sport, breaking down the latest news, scores, and more. Welcome to our Nation Sports Show.
Oh, yeah, you know what time it is. It's Wednesday, and you know what that means. We are live for another edition of our Nation Sports Show right here on YouTube. I am your host for this evening, Stephen Wyand. What is going on, everybody? Welcome once again to another action-packed edition of the Sports Show. And before I get to my fine co-host for this evening, we got to plug the social media platforms. Up first, on Twitter at @ON_sports show, Facebook.com/Nation Sports Show, and where we are live right now on this Wednesday for once. Usually we're live on Tuesdays, but tonight we had to move it to tonight. We are live on YouTube.com/Our Nation Sports Show. Don't forget to smash and like this video and subscribe to the YouTube channel where you can catch our past live shows and check out all the cool clips that we've done in the past. And so also don't forget to follow the Nation's Corner on Twitter at Nation's Corner. Everywhere else on YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, it is at the Nation's Corner. And don't forget to check out the show this weekend, as the guys and gal will be, or the guys, I should say, because some will be in Philadelphia this weekend for Icons and for Battleground Wrestling. And we're Bully Ray would take on Matt Cardona in a loser leaves ECW arena match. So Bully Ray and Matt Cardona will be squaring off this Saturday in Philadelphia at the world famous ECW arena in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. And don't forget to check out the Nation's Corner this Saturday as the guys will recap AEW New Japan Pro Wrestling's Forbidden Door, and what a phenomenal pay-per-view it was this past Sunday in Toronto, Ontario, Canada. And once again, don't forget to follow the Nation's Corner on all their social media platforms and like and subscribe. And with that being said, let's get to my co-host for tonight. He is a Washington Commanders football fan, an Atlanta Braves fan, and he's one of my good friends from the great state of North Carolina. What's going on, JT Joey Thornton?
What is up, everybody? I know that I said last week that I wasn't going to be on the show, but then again, that's when I thought the show was going to be on Tuesday. But here it is, Wednesday night, a special edition of our Nation Sports Show. We got some stuff to talk about, ranging from the NFL to the NBA to Major Leagues to, heck, whatever else we want to talk about. So without further ado, let's do this.
Let's do it indeed. I mean, my goodness, where do we even start? I mean, let's go with the NFL to get this out of the way, because this Tyreek Hill story is it's very interesting, because did he do it? Did he not do it? I mean, there's reports floating around that he's going to be charged with assault and battery, and happened in Miami. Who knows what happened? I think that if he is charged, I think that I think that he will serve a suspension. I don't think it's going to be a full 17-game suspension. I'm going to guess maybe 4 to 5 maybe games if he is suspended for this action. I mean, Joey, what are your thoughts on this? Because this story is just so conflicting. I mean, we don't know what's true.
Well, I actually did a little bit of digging right here before the show started, whenever we were talking about this in the pre-show. And before I get into what I was reading, I do want to point out that we do see stuff like this happen quite a bit, whether it's an athlete or just any sort of celebrity in general actually doing something, or they just trying to get framed. Because, I mean, come on, how many times have we seen both sides of the story? Or how many times have we seen both sides of the seesaw? I mean, we've seen it happen quite a bit. But going back to what I was just reading about the whole Tyreek Hill situation, there apparently was a video taken from a cell phone that shows Tyreek Hill and an unnamed bar employee getting into an altercation with words. But what was not seen, apparently, was the fact that Tyreek Hill apparently did strike the man. Not sure if it was taken on another cell phone camera or not. That was not seen. But what makes this story even more interesting is the fact that neither Tyreek Hill has spoken to the police, nor the alleged victim has even spoke to the police. As a matter of fact, word is going around right now that, as of right now, we don't know if the alleged victim is even going to press charges. So if he does not decide to come forward and press charges, then chances are that Tyreek Hill didn't even do anything wrong. Because what if it was the employee that was trying to get into a little bit of an altercation? What if it was the employee that was causing all the ruckus and Tyreek Hill was just playing self-defense? I mean, I could be wrong. I couldn't be. I could be right or I could be wrong. But the fact of the matter is, this story is going to be very interesting, and an ongoing investigation is, of course, going on right now. So I guess we'll just have to wait and see what happens with this whole storyline.
Yes, we will have to wait and see what happens. I mean, it's really fascinating, when you see stuff like this happen. Like, we've seen past players in the NFL and across all the major sports leagues. I mean, Ray Rice, for example, with video evidence back in 2013 that he punched his girlfriend, and they were obviously, near the elevator when that happened and stuff. And, the Adrian Peterson situation with his kid, what's his face? Hardy. What's his first name? You know what I'm talking about, right? He used to play for the Panthers. He used to play
Greg Hardy.
Greg Hardy, thank you. Greg Hardy and his assault charges and stuff like that. Like, we've seen, past instances, where scandals or assault charges and stuff that has happened in the past, and some have been true and some have been false. And now that there's who knows? I mean, we only know what we have right now, and maybe he will be charged. Maybe he won't be charged. I mean, who knows? I mean, we can only take it day by day, in this situation, with Tyreek Hill and the situation with Miami. But it will be fascinating to see what happens. I mean, with this situation. And yeah, I mean, like, judging from past, instances, it'll probably take I would say probably another month or so before we kind of know something official. But I mean, who knows what will happen? It'll be really interesting to see what happens.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
So and also speaking of charges and assault, word came down this past week that Raiders receiver Devontae Adams charges on assault for punching a man during the Chiefs Raiders October 10th Monday Night Football game. Those charges have been dropped, and Adams will no longer be charged, as the charges, like I said, have been dropped. So, I mean, Adams, when that happened last October, I mean, I get why he was so visibly frustrated, because the Raiders blew that 17-point lead against the KC Chiefs during that game. And obviously Mahomes and Kansas City came back to win that game and come from behind fashion in the fourth quarter. And so what are your thoughts on that situation where the charges for Adams, were lingering and those charges ended up getting dropped?
I mean, I can understand why Devontae Adams was upset. The fact that he was walking towards the locker room and the employee was trying to I wouldn't say trying to cut Adams off, but he was trying to also walk in a different direction as to where Adams was walking to. So I'm guessing Adams was a little bit upset that he kind of got cut off from walking towards the locker room or walking towards the tunnel. But I think another reason why he was so upset was the fact that whenever he was first introduced by the Las Vegas Raiders, he would say something like, "Oh yeah, I'm going to get at least 20 targets every single week, hands down, because I'm the number one receiver." He probably got so upset that he only got 19 targets in that game against the Chiefs, so he was upset by not getting that 20th.
At this point, who knows?
Yeah, at this point, who knows? Because now the Raiders have a new quarterback named Jimmy G. Garoppolo. Well, that is if he can wind up passing his physical. And now Derek Carr has moved on to New Orleans, but who knows? Who knows? But I will point out real quick that this broke earlier this afternoon, just before 1 o'clock. And I remember when I was talking last week about the whole NFL gambling policy. Well, a report has gone out and multiple sources have confirmed that a handful of NFL players, including Indianapolis Colts cornerback and kick returner Isaiah Rodgers, are expected to receive season-long suspensions this week. A handful of NFL players.
Wow.
But only one has been confirmed, and that is, of course, Isaiah Rodgers. So who knows how many.
And if I'm not mistaken, there was a couple of Detroit players that were involved in this allegedly, and obviously, man.
Yeah.
That's great. I totally forgot about that.
Yeah, those players have already been suspended, but they're saying that this is going to be a whole new list of players.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, this is a whole new list of players that we haven't even seen in the news as far as getting suspended. So
right.
Who knows how many players are on this list?
Very interesting. I mean, anything can happen, folks. I mean, and just real quick, as a quick reminder, next Tuesday we will not be live on the sports show, or Wednesday. We are taking next week off to spend the 4th of July holiday with our family and our friends.
Yes.
And hanging out with everybody. And we will be back in 2 weeks. 2 weeks. 2 weeks for another edition of our Nation Sports Show. Who would have thought I'd throw a half-baked reference in there? But I just did, because we're live. Going live. Anyways, I mean, it's really interesting, what could happen. And we know the list that broke a couple of months ago when all these players from Detroit and
the player from Washington
and I want to say Buffalo. I can't remember right off, but all these different players were being, obviously, suspended and stuff, and caught breaking the rules, breaking the law, if you will. And it's going to be really interesting to see what other list is going to pop up with all these other players and stuff.
Oh, yeah.
Hopefully there won't be nothing major as far as a major player, they could get suspended, because that would be very damaging, for the NFL.
At this point, you never know.
You never know. I mean, at this point, these people need to stop doing things illegal. Yeah. Stop doing things illegal, please. Just obey by the rules and you won't get suspended. Come on. Anyways, moving on to the NBA, and we'll get this up. We'll talk about this first. Last Thursday was the NBA draft in Brooklyn, and obviously Victor Wembanyama went to the San Antonio Spurs, 19 years old, first overall draft selection by the Spurs, and their first major pick in the first round, I believe, since Kawhi, right?
Well, this is actually, this was their first major pick since Kawhi, but this was also their first time drafting in the top since 1999, when the Spurs took a very familiar player by the name of Mr. Tim Duncan as number 1 in the 1999 NBA draft.
97.
That's right.
Yep, so this was their first overall big selection since the great Tim Duncan in 97. And obviously Duncan went on 4 NBA championships with the San Antonio Spurs. And
alongside David Robinson and Tony Parker and Manu Ginobili.
5. Excuse me, 5.
Yep.
1, 2, 3, 4. Yep, 5 championships. Yep.
And played alongside a bunch of great players.
Tony Parker, Manny Ginobili, and Bruce Bowen.
Bruce Bowen. Heck, even Robert Horry in his last
Mr. Big Shot Robert Horry.
Yeah,
Robert Horry and Michael Finley, and I mean
his last few years in the NBA.
Steven Jackson, Steve Kerr. I mean, just Tim Duncan has won so many championships alongside great players, and Greg Popovich, one of the greatest, if not the greatest basketball coach that has ever coached in the major pros. Popovich is gonna get this kid where he needs to go.
Yeah. And of course Wembanyama, I mean, he'd already said he's feeling very confident being in San Antonio. He's already been practicing in the uniform, practicing on the court, and he says that he just loves the San Antonio environment. And like you just said, I mean, he's got one of the best coaches in the history of the NBA to serve as a mentor to him, and that, of course, is Greg Popovich. So,
I mean, it's amazing.
I wish Wembanyama the best of luck in San Antonio.
Yeah, because Wembanyama he's a big dude, 7'4", and he has that wingspan like KD. It's insane.
Yeah, his official height was just confirmed to ESPN just a little bit ago. He is 7 foot 3.5 inches.
Wow, 7 foot 3.5. That's just crazy. I mean, and what's crazy is you got all these big men coming out of college and coming to the pros, and a lot of these newer big men are not just your typical big guys. They can stretch the floor and pass the ball and dribble the ball and shoot free throws. I mean, and just ask Nikola Jokic, who just won a championship with the Nuggets last month against Miami, and or a couple weeks ago, I should say. Excuse me. So, and Victor is, again, he is that new-ish type player, where he's not your typical player. He's so gifted for a big man that he can do it all. Pass, rebound, shoot the mid-range jumper, drive to the basket, and shoot the 3. It's just incredible.
It's amazing. And I hate to switch gears for just a little bit, but I just want to confirm that big breaking news has just came into Sports Center, and that is the fact that the storyline that we have all been predicting ever since the Blackhawks drew number one in the NHL draft has finally been confirmed. Mr. Connor Bedard going to Chicago to be a member of the Blackhawks. It has just been confirmed.
Congratulations to Chicago for getting their future start in the National Hockey League. I mean, just, man, this is what we do, folks. You know, we're live. When we're live and things like this break, we obviously break it. And, you know, and again, congratulations to Chicago. Not surprised getting their man who could lead them to the promised land, you know, winning another Stanley Cup. You never
And
know.
I do want to point out something real quick in regards to Connor Bedard. There have been 5, including himself, there have been 5 men who, prior to getting drafted in the NHL, posted 70 goals and 70 assists in a single season, leading up to them getting picked in the NHL draft, and the previous 4 are all in the Hall of Fame. So that means Connor Bedard is in a really good class. A really good class. So I wish him the best of luck in Chicago. The kid's going to do great things.
I absolutely agree. 110%, my friend. And that's a really good class to be in. And who knows what could happen with this young man. You know, he's got a long career ahead of him, and he could be doing some big things for Chicago.
That's right.
I mean, they won all those Stanley Cups in the last decade, and they could be on their way slowly but surely. You know, but you never know, because, I mean, Vegas, you know, was an expansion team, you know, 6 years ago, and it took them, you know, not that long to win their first Stanley Cup this past season.
That's
And
right.
we shall see what happens. But also continuing into the draft. Now, we talked about this briefly on the pre-show, and I want you to break it down, because me, you, and Kev were talking about this, and he said I wouldn't go with who Charlotte went with was obviously Miller. Should have gone with Scoot. So with that being said, give everybody your thoughts on what Charlotte did in this draft.
What Charlotte did was they absolutely played everybody. There was word going around that Brandon Miller was going to be the favorite to be chosen number 2 by Charlotte, but yet Charlotte was like, you know what? Even though we're going to go with Brandon Miller at number 2, let's keep these Charlotte Hornets fans, let's keep them going a little bit longer, and let's just issue out a news story saying that we're thinking about taking Scoot Henderson to number 2 by bringing him in for another private workout and see how that goes. But in the end, it was like Charlotte just took a big old... It's almost like Charlotte just took a spitball, put it into a straw, and just shot his eye out. Because, I mean, Charlotte knew that they were going to take Brandon Miller all along. They knew they were, and that is where the mistake lies. Because out of the 2, Scoot Henderson was definitely the more skilled player. He was the more experienced player. I mean, he was in I guess you could say, the minor leagues of the NBA when he played for the G League Ignite last season. He was definitely the more experienced player between him and Brandon Miller. Brandon Miller, yes, even though he did play for the University of Alabama's basketball team last season, Miller had a lot on his plate. Because, yes, the capital murder charge is obviously still going on that Brandon Miller is kind of in the middle of. But the fact of the matter is, Brandon Miller, yes, he showed good skill. I mean, he had a good skill set last year, but he was a one and done player. I mean, he didn't really grow an awful lot when he was at the University of Alabama. And yeah, I know that college players tend to say that they're better than what everybody thinks they are, which is why they're going out onto the court night and day and night, week after week, month after month to prove that they can actually belong with the big boys. But I mean, there's just something about Brandon Miller that just doesn't seem right. I mean, yeah, he was the best player, or seemingly he was known as the best player to play for Alabama last season, but he wasn't. He wasn't. I mean, yeah, Brandon Miller is a great player. I mean, I give him that. He is a decent player. But to me, he just was not top 5, maybe even top 10 material. Because not a whole lot of growing can happen when you play for one season in college. Now, granted, some players can actually thrive under that 1 year playing in college. I mean, even though we rat on him a lot, LeBron James, for example, or as you know, he didn't even play in college. But yeah, there have been amazing players who have played just 1 year in college, and they've actually gone on to actually be a success in the pros. I mean, take Kevin Durant. Back when he was drafted back in 2007, he played 1 year at the University of Texas, and he thought he was ready for the pros. And honestly, he was. I mean, Durant was the best player in that 2007 NBA draft class.
That's right, because Greg Oden was the first overall pick.
Yeah, and Greg Oden was nothing but a big old bust.
Major bust in the NBA. I mean, just a big man who came out of college, so early, and he goes to the pros and he has all these injuries, and he did not amount to his success.
But I mean, it just goes to show that some players can actually make that work. But as a guy who personally watched Brandon Miller quite a bit last season, because of course he played for Alabama, and I was trying to follow Alabama's success all throughout the college basketball league last season. But watching him play over the various games that he was able to play in, it just nothing seemed right about him. I mean, he was always putting up these ridiculous shots. He was causing turnovers by making bad passes. He was getting the ball stolen from him quite a bit. I mean, this dude tried to think he was Stephen Curry, because he would take the ball, dribble just past half court, and then toss up a 3-pointer like it's nothing. I mean, only Stephen Curry can do that. Nobody else can do that. And especially not a one-and-done flashy player like Brandon Miller. It's just not going to happen. It's not going to happen. So, I mean, I guess I can see why Charlotte went with Brandon, because they didn't want to have another point guard come in to try to take LaMelo Ball's spot. But, I mean, you could have easily put Scoot Henderson and LaMelo Ball at the two guard positions, with putting Scoot in at point guard and put LaMelo in at shooting guard, or put LaMelo at point guard and Scoot Henderson at shooting guard. I mean, either way, you could have had Charlotte had a chance to get an elite backcourt with LaMelo Ball, who is up and coming a little bit, and an amazingly highly touted player like Scoot Henderson, and you could have had one of the best backcourts, one of the best backcourts in the entire Eastern Conference next season. Now, granted, if Charlotte would have drafted Scoot Henderson, they probably wouldn't have gone anywhere near the playoffs, because it probably would take a couple years for Charlotte to get back into the playoff picture. But the bottom line is, Charlotte would have been better off by taking Scoot Henderson rather than taking Brandon Miller. Hands down. So Charlotte messed up.
Agree. I agree. No, great points. And
now Scoot Henderson is going to be in Portland, where if he forms that amazing backcourt with Damian Lillard, oh, you better watch out. You better watch out. If Damian Lillard decides to stay in Portland and he forms that backcourt with Scoot Henderson for Portland, oh, it's going to be Rip City, baby, next season. You better believe it's going to be Rip City.
Yeah, and also to add to that about Scoot Henderson is that Henderson actually had, and I know this sounds pretty arrogant, you know, like I could see people would say this, but honestly, I think Scoot was right because Henderson said that on ESPN radio during the NBA draft coverage, he said that I have the most experience out of all the players in this draft class because he's been in the G League, you know, and having those reps down there in the G League, having multiple reps, you know, during the season, off season, and stuff like that. Like he's getting his reps in and all that, and he's getting better and better and better. And maybe this will convince Damian Lillard to stay in Portland. So
Very possible.
We shall see. And moving on to some news in the NBA, there was some big trades that happened last week. And
boy.
We'll save the best for last, but we'll start with this one. The Boston Celtics are looking like a completely different team already in the offseason, trading away Marcus Smart for Chris Porzingis. And I have mixed feelings on this because Marcus Smart was a very, very, very good defender. A pretty good shooter, not the best. When he got hot. But his defense made his offense even better. Now, Chris Porzingis, on the other hand, he's a hell of an offensive player, but he's not a great defender. And Derek White said in an interview that there's one Marcus Smart, and it's going to be hard to fill in, him not being there. And he's right. Derek White is correct. That trading away a great defensive mind player like Marcus, it's going to be a huge role to fill because he brought so much intensity to that basketball team and just a great player, and he really brought their defense to a completely different level. And I really think that Smart's defensive prowess really elevated the Celtics to be even better on defense because that's how good he is on defense. What do you think, Joey?
Yeah, this was definitely the worst thing to happen to Boston and definitely the best thing to happen to Memphis. Because before I get into that, let me look at the complete trade, which is I have it right here on my phone, the complete details as to who went where in the trade. So, obviously the big players, Kristaps Porzingis going to the Celtics, Marcus Smart going to the Grizzlies, and guard Tyus Jones going to the Wizards, as well as the Celtics also sending Danilo Gallinari and Mike Muscala to Washington also.
Okay.
Memphis sent Boston their first-round pick, the 25th pick in the draft, and the Golden State Warriors' top 4 protected first-round pick in 2024, and the Celtics sent the 35th pick to Washington. So now that those complete details have been, of course, revealed, here's my take.
Okay.
You were absolutely right, Steven. Marcus Smart is definitely a defensive-minded player. And
oh, yeah.
The way that he was doing on playing defense made his offense seem a lot better. So I can understand the fact about Boston wanting to get a big man like Porzingis who can snag rebounds, make plays whenever he needs to, and just be a dominant big man inside the paint and in the front court. But it's just It just doesn't make sense to me. It doesn't make sense because, like you said, Porzingis has been lackluster when it comes to playing defense. I mean, just think, ever since Porzingis got drafted by the New York Knicks a few years ago, he's played for, this is now his fourth different team. He's played for New York, he's played for Dallas, he's played for Washington, and now he's going to play for Boston. So that just lets you know that Porzingis, he may be a decent player, but it's just in just his short tenure in the NBA, this is already his fourth team that he's going to be playing for.
And honestly, real quick, that's, to me, that's not a good track record.
No, it's not.
Unless you're a star player and you're maneuvering yourself to different teams, unless you are a credible, major role player, or you are a star player and you're going to multiple teams, and not short increments. Okay, I get that. But Porzingis has been on, this will be his fourth team in such a short period of time. He hasn't been on a team so long. I mean, we all thought, some of us thought that, that Chris's days in Dallas with Luka and Tim Hardaway Jr., and all of those guys down there in Dallas were never all together. We thought that could have been a pretty good team. But Chris's defense is just, let's call it like it is. It's not good. And, and I don't like this trade at all. Go ahead.
I don't like this trade either. And I just happened to look at his career stats. This is going to be his 9th NBA season, and he's already on his 4th different team. So that is definitely not a good track record. I mean, that is an average of about, I would say, 2 teams. See, I'm trying to think of the actual mark here. So on average, he would play for 2 teams in 1 year. I mean, that's not good. That is not good. I mean, that just lets you know that people are really seeing Porzingis for what he is. And yeah, I understand that he got several boos whenever he got drafted by the New York Knicks with the number 6 pick back in the 2015 NBA draft, because everybody was saying that they didn't want Porzingis, that he wasn't as good of a player as everybody thought he was. And I mean, and this track record speaks for itself. I mean, play for the Knicks for 3 seasons, play with Dallas for 3 seasons, played for Washington the past 2 seasons, and now he's going to be playing for Boston this upcoming season. And keep in mind, I'm also looking at the amount of games that he's played for each season. Only once has Porzingis played at least 70 games in an NBA season. And that was his rookie year with the New York Knicks when he played 72. He played 66 games the following year for New York, and then last year he played for 65 games with Washington. But look at all of these other amount of games that he's played for these various teams. 48, 57, 43, 34, 17. I mean, the dude is injury prone. He is definitely injury prone. So, I mean, everybody may think that Boston is going to be an instant title favorite now that they got a big man in the front court. But the fact of the matter is, Boston is still going to be in the same predicament come next year's NBA playoffs that they were in this season. Because if not worse, because like we have gone back and forth saying, Porzingis does not really know how to play defense. I mean, he gets blown up in the paint on several occasions. And Marcus Smart, oh no, he was shutting players down whenever it came to a one-on-one matchup in the paint. So, kudos to Memphis for actually improving on their backcourt, finding a replacement for Dylan the Villain Brooks. And whenever John Morant comes back from his 25-game suspension, he and Marcus Smart are going to be forming that elite backcourt that Memphis has needed and been wanting for such a long time. So once John Morant comes back from his suspension and Marcus Smart and John Morant get that team chemistry going, oh, you better watch out because Memphis is going to be coming for everybody, including Golden State. Now, do I think Memphis is going to be more competitive? Yeah, they're going to be a little bit more competitive. Just a little bit. Because Memphis still has some holes on that team that they need to have fixed before they can even think about making a deep run in the NBA postseason. But, yeah, the fact of the matter is, it doesn't matter for Boston's sake. It doesn't matter if they have a big man now in that front court. The fact of the matter is, if he doesn't step up on defense, Boston is going to be in the exact same hole come next season as they were this season, if not worse.
Oh, I agree. Because, I mean, Marcus Smart, when times got tough in these games, especially in that series against Miami, Marcus Smart, to me, was the driving leader that said, hey, don't let us get one. Don't let us get one game. And they got 3 in a row. Mm-hmm. And they came up short, in 7 games against Miami at home. But Marcus Smart, I think, will make Memphis a little better. But also as well, Tyus Jones was their point guard. That's a huge loss too for Memphis because he was a huge contributing factor, just like with Morant, because both of those guys were the 2 main guys, in my opinion. Yeah, you still have Jackson Jr., who's a hell of a big man, hitting mid-range jumpers and threes and all that stuff, But I really think that losing Tyus Jones to Washington, that's another huge loss. I mean, really, honestly, if you think about it, nobody really wins this trade. But if I had to pick, I would have to pick Memphis wins because of getting Marcus Smart.
Yeah, I do. I do agree that.
I'm sorry, but
I do agree that Memphis won this trade.
I cannot get this out of my head with Chris Porzingis being a Celtic. I mean, he is not going to do good at all on defense. I'm sorry. Like, knowing his track record and know how he carries himself, he doesn't care about defense. All he cares about is being on the offensive end.
That's right. I mean, yeah, Porzingis, he's a big man who can score in the post and can post up and knock down a mid-range jumper if he wants to, but just defense-wise, he just doesn't have it.
No.
He doesn't have it.
No. Absolutely not.
But before we go on, I do want to say I do want to give a shout-out here in the chat to Mr. Big T, who is watching the show right now. What's going on, brother?
What up, Big T? Anyways, folks, before we move on, don't forget once again to follow us on Twitter at @ON_Sports Show, Facebook.com/Nation Sports Show, and where we are live right now on a special Wednesday edition of the Sports Show, YouTube.com/Our Nation Sports Show. We are live usually every Tuesday night at 7 p.m. Eastern, 6 Central, 4 p.m. Pacific time. But also, like I said at the beginning, of the show, of this hour, mind you, we will not be live. I repeat, we will not be live next Tuesday for our sports show because of obviously the 4th of July holiday, spending time with our family and our friends and making good memories.
Absolutely. And I do hate that we have to get a little saddened here with this, but I actually didn't find this out until last night as I was leaving the concert that I went to last night. But there was a really sad story that came across ESPN yesterday, and that is the fact that former Arkansas Razorback and former NFL quarterback who played for teams such as the Patriots and the Ravens, Ryan Mallett, was pronounced dead at a hospital yesterday after an apparent drowning took place.
Oh no!
At the around the Miami, Florida area. first responders responded to a call at about 2:12 yesterday afternoon. I can't remember where they said it was, but it was somewhere in Miami. I think it was I can't remember if it was in the ocean or something like that, but yeah. Apparently Ryan Mallett was a part of the crew that was pulled out of the water. They actually were able to pull him out, and he was transported to a hospital, and it was at the hospital where he was pronounced dead. So my heart, my condolences, my prayers go out to Ryan Mallett and his family. The guy was only 35 years old. He still had a long life ahead of him. And he was actually a high school football coach. He was actually named the football coach for a high school team in the Miami area last year. And he was going into his second season as being a high school football head coach. So my prayers and my condolences go out to the family of Ryan Mallett, only 35 years old.
Only 35. That's tough. That's very tough.
Very tough.
Unfortunate that this happened. He played several games with the Patriots, backing up, Brady, and
he played some games with Baltimore back when he was backing up Joe Flacco.
Yep, I remember that name very well. Very well. Even though he was a backup, you still knew that name because that was a very significant backup name.
Yeah, he played some games with the Houston Texans after Matt Shaw went down with an injury. And in his last college season for the Arkansas Razorbacks back in 2009, he finished 7th place in voting for the Heisman Trophy. So that just lets you know. Yeah, that just lets you know that he was an elite college player who really didn't have a lot of success in the pros, but the fact of the matter is Ryan Mallett was a good man.
He was a good man. And again, from all of us here on the sports show, we send our condolences, our thoughts, and our prayers and our wishes to his family at this point in time. It's really unfortunate and tough, to go through things like this. And again, 35 years old. I mean, that's very young. Very young. And
and I also want to point out another sad news story that broke yesterday, and that is the fact that the bodies of 3 people were found dead inside of a Chicago home, or I can't remember what they said it was, but the 3 people that turned out or that were pronounced dead at the scene were an aunt, an uncle, and a nephew of NASCAR racing legend Jimmy Johnson.
Oof.
NASCAR racing legend Jimmy Johnson's and uncle and 11-year-old nephew were found dead from gunshot wounds yesterday, and he has already said that he is not going to race in this weekend's race at Chicago because he is going to be with the families. So
rightly so.
Yeah, very, very rightly so. So my condolences and my prayers also go out to Jimmy Johnson and his family as they deal with this tragic loss.
Yeah, that's not much more can add to that. That's just that's tough. That sucks.
It's always tough to lose. It's always tough to lose a family member,
especially multiple family members in a violent situation like that.
Yeah. And one reason why we also didn't have the show last night, even though we probably would have had it if Ezra had his store meeting, and of course you would have been available, but Kevin wouldn't have been on because he went to the visitation of his former coworker that was
that's right.
Found dead in that explosion. So, I mean, I bring all this up because, here on the sports show, we like to have fun. We like to talk junk. We like to talk sports. But the reason why we bring this up here on the sports show is the fact that life is short, man.
Yes.
Life is short. No matter how many years you live, it still never seems long enough when it's your time. And for all those families that have been impacted by these tragic losses, that just lets you know that life is short and that you need to tell your family that you love them. You need to tell your family that you love them and that you appreciate them, because you never know when it'll be your turn.
Yep.
You never know.
And same thing goes for me and my family, with the tragic loss of my cousin last weekend, I should say, or last week, I should say, just a violent car crash. And yeah, it's tough. I mean, 19 years old. I mean, just it's been a hell of a week, for all of us, in some shape, way, or form. I mean, that tragic accident that killed, Kevin's friend, that worked.
I mean, you
It
just
was a
never
freak.
know when it's
It
going
was
to be your time.
it was a freak accident, and
Yeah.
it's tough.
So I mean, yeah. So one life lesson here from everybody at the sports show to everybody out there: love your families. Make sure
Love
you
your
tell them you love them and that you appreciate them.
Tell your family, tell your friends how much they mean to you,
Yes.
and you just never know.
Yeah, you just never know when it's going to be your turn.
Yep. And so to get back on track,
just to get back on track a little bit. This is going to be a very tragic loss because it's pretty much guaranteed that it's now going to happen. But we've been talking several weeks about the whole Oakland Athletics situation with John Fisher and Dave Cavill just being absolute poisons for this Oakland Athletics organization and this athletics fan base. And I mean, I just don't know what else we can say about them other than the fact that they're absolute cancers, and they need to sell this team because Oakland does not need to lose all four of its sports teams.
no, they've gone through enough hell, in the past decade.
Yeah.
And all these A's fans are making all of these shirts that are loudly against John Fisher and Dave Cavill and what their tactics are. And there's going to be some A's fans getting together next month. I believe that date is Mike, if you are watching this afterwards, let us know what that date is again. I know it's in July. I want to say it's the 20.
I think I know exactly what you're talking about. July 25th.
That's it. Yep, July 25th. Yep.
Yeah, July 25th. Whenever the Giants are coming to town, they're having an event called Save the Bay, in which Giants fans and Athletics fans are going to come together.
Yep. July 25th. July 25th is that date.
I remember seeing something about that on Facebook a couple days ago.
So I will say this right here, right now, Mike, if you and some of your boys down there in California want to come back on in a couple of weeks and talk about this, and you're more than welcome to. And shout outs to everybody out there in Oakland land, and Gabriel and Hal and Boss and
yes,
and all the A's fans from around Oakland and the Bay Area, and so again, July 25th. Save the Bay, Oakland Athletics versus the San Francisco Giants. But more importantly, it's Giants and Athletics fans coming together, not for the game, but more importantly, to save the Oakland A's, hopefully, and keeping them in California.
Yes.
And we keep beating a dead horse, but we're going to keep beating this dead horse until something is done, and hopefully something gets done, because the Athletics need to stay in California.
Because how disheartening would it be for Oakland to lose all of their organizations that they've worked so hard to build over the past several years?
In the past half decades. I mean, you had the Oakland Raiders who went from Oakland to Los Angeles. They still stayed in the California area, and then they go back to Oakland. They were in Oakland for all those years, and then they leave Oakland once again. and go to Las Vegas.
Vegas, yeah.
And now the Oakland Athletics, just because John Fisher sees money in his sight, and so does Dave Cavill, those two pricks, they see money in their sights that, just because the NFL is king, and we all know the NFL is king, you know, as far, whether you like it or you don't like it, the NFL is number one, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And the Raiders are in the NFL. The Vegas Raiders are in Vegas playing at Allegiant Stadium. And, you know, and John Fisher sees money in his sight that, let's move the team to Vegas because we think they need a baseball team, just like they got a football team already. And, you know, and the women's basketball team. No. And also you have the Golden Knights who just won the Stanley Cup against Florida a few weeks ago. And the answer is no. You don't need another team in Vegas. You don't. You don't. So to everybody out there in Oakland land and San Francisco land, again, July 25th, next month, both of those two teams, fans, organizations are going to be coming together for one big time cause. And that's hopefully to stop John Fisher and Dave Cavill's corrupt move of sending the Oakland A's to Las Vegas, because that is the last thing that we need as sports fans, is to see another team city, you know, losing another team to over money. And this has Dan Snyder written all over it.
Oh, yeah.
This is greedy beyond belief.
Absolutely. But
hashtag sell the team.
Yeah. But moving to a different sport, but staying in the exact same environment, let's get to the biggest, most shocking NBA trade that happened this past week.
Oh boy.
Chris Paul, the legendary so-called fake team leader, Chris Paul, being traded from the Phoenix Suns to the Golden State Warriors.
Wait.
Yep.
Even better. Chris Paul, in 1 week, is traded away from Phoenix
Suns
to Washington to Golden State.
To Golden State for a package that includes the best player one of the best bench players from the NBA Finals a year ago to the biggest cancer in the locker room, Mr. Jordan Poole, going to Washington.
I don't have any words for this trade. I mean, this to me, and I'll be really curious in a couple of weeks when Kevin comes back on the show, when we go back live on July 11th, I will be rather curious to get his thoughts on this trade, because honestly, nobody wins. Nobody. Chris Paul is a desperate man to win an NBA championship. He has become the new Kevin Durant, but even worse.
Mm-hmm.
Because at least Kevin Durant, when he won the NBA championships in 2017 and 18, KD was the de facto leader of this team. And I know Kevin will agree with me on that Kevin Durant was the man that led the charge. Yes, Steph and Clay and Draymond were huge contributing factors too, but KD was the focal point of those NBA Finals appearances and the domination that they had. Because I guarantee you, if Durant did not go down with the Achilles injury in 2019 against Toronto in the NBA Finals, Golden State would have three-peated. They would have. And the way Durant was playing in that Finals game in Game 5, had 11 first-half points, and then he had the Achilles injury, went down, and Golden State went down with them. But fast forward to Chris Paul. Chris Paul goes to the NBA Finals 2 years ago, or at this point, technically 3 seasons ago, with the Phoenix Suns against the Milwaukee Bucks. And Chris Paul in these finals did not show up. Did not show up. He was playing so good for the first 3 rounds, and then he just folded up like an accordion and just choked.
I mean, even even though that series did go 6 games, I mean, it doesn't. I mean, it's not rocket science to figure out between you, me, Kevin, Ezra, and heck, even Randy,
Yep.
to say that Milwaukee outplayed Phoenix in that entire series.
Agreed.
Hands down. Hands
Agreed.
down. I mean, Milwaukee, yes, the series did go 6 games. We understand that. But it doesn't change the fact that Milwaukee outplayed Phoenix in every single game in that series. Phoenix just got lucky those 2 games that they won. They got lucky.
And those were games, mind you, that Chris Paul played pretty well.
Yeah.
He played good. And then
Absolutely.
he just folded up. He folded up like an accordion. Just
Absolutely.
Yep.
I mean, it's insane.
And then when you fast forward a couple of seasons later in 22 and then 23, Phoenix doesn't go past the second round because of
I wonder why.
factors.
I wonder why.
Let's see. The first time you lose to Dallas on your home floor on May the 12th, in Game 7, mind you, getting your asses whooped by 25 points. Chris Paul did not show up. Devin Booker sure as hell did not show up, and neither did the role players. And then you fast forward a year later, and it's even worse because, wait for it, you trade away all of these great role players that helped Phoenix get to the NBA Finals 3 seasons ago to Brooklyn, and then KD
for Kevin Durant.
For one player, Kevin Durant. And everybody in the NBA media was like, oh, the Phoenix is the de facto team to beat now. No, they were not.
No, they were not.
You got 3 superstars in one basketball. 3 superstars in one basketball. And it did not work.
Because, like Kevin said last week, and he could not have been any more right than what he said with this statement, it does not matter how many star players you put out there, whether it is a field, a court, a rink, a stadium, whatever.
Doesn't matter.
It does not matter how many star players you put out there. If you do not have a decent bench to back you up, you ain't going nowhere.
Nope. And I think we can finally put this narrative to bed.
Phoenix did not have a bench. They have not had a bench these past 2 seasons that has been playing key roles whenever Chris Paul, Devin Booker, and Kevin Durant were out there on the court or weren't out there on the court. Their bench wasn't doing anything.
Their bench was god awful. And
god awful.
This bench this year was even worse. I mean, in the series against Denver, Denver, for the most part, outplayed them. And then in Game 5 on the road, or at home, they beat them soundly. And then in Game 6 on the road in enemy territory, they absolutely ran the Suns out of the gym in the first half. Like, it's over. You're down by 30. It's over.
Because, I mean, think about it. Denver, they have 2 star players in Nikola Jokic and Jamal Murray. I mean, that is no question, hands down. But the fact of the matter is Denver was able to have a bench with players such as Aaron Gordon, Michael Porter Jr., Jeff Green, who was one of the NBA's journeymen. I mean, Denver, I mean, even though Aaron Gordon and Michael Porter Jr. were predominantly seen as starters, they weren't really the star players because that, of course, was being taken by Nikola Jokic and Jamal Murray. But if you would have asked them about that, they would have been okay with that. They would have been okay with that. So, yeah, they were predominantly seen as bench players, even though they were officially starters, because Jokic and Murray were the two star players for that Denver team, and everybody else was backing them up. And that is why Denver won the NBA championship just a few weeks ago, outplaying the Miami Heat. Because Denver has that elite bench that can step up and make plays whenever their star players need a break from in-game action every once in a while.
That's true. Like when you look at, all of these teams that have made these significant runs, we can finally put this narrative to bed that the super team has to happen. It doesn't happen anymore because you don't need a super team to win a championship, because the Milwaukee Bucks and the Denver Nuggets, and I would even say even Golden State from last year, because they're from 2 seasons ago, their bench was incredible. These last 3 championship teams have proven you do not need a super team, especially with Denver and Milwaukee. I mean, Denver and Milwaukee's 2 championship teams are virtually the same. Dominant young players with a great sidekick with an even greater bench. Because the Denver Nuggets and the Milwaukee Bucks from 3 seasons ago, both of those 2 organizations' teams proved that you can win with 2 great star players and a great cast of characters.
Absolutely. And for those of y'all out there who may not believe us, let's compare the 2 real quick. Okay? Denver and Milwaukee, the 2 championship teams from 21 for Milwaukee and 23 this year for Denver. Star player, Milwaukee, Giannis. For Denver, Jokic. Star player for Milwaukee, Chris Middleton. For Denver, Jamal Murray. The cast of backups, Milwaukee, Bobby Portis, Drew Holiday. Just a couple names from that list.
Brook Lopez.
Denver, yeah, Brook Lopez. For Denver, Aaron Gordon, Michael Porter Jr. I mean, very similar. Very similar. So, for those of y'all out there who may not think that Denver and Milwaukee's teams were not equal when it comes to why each team won the NBA championship, then you need to stop watching sports in general. Just stop watching sports if you think that Denver and Milwaukee's teams from their NBA championship winning seasons were not equal. Because on paper and on the court, they were the exact same. Hands down.
Oh yeah, when you look at these 2 championship teams, they're so similar, and this brings me back to my point as far as with this trade and talking about Chris Paul. Chris Paul, the last 2 seasons with Phoenix, was a shell of himself, and going back to his years in Houston when he was with James Harden, what did he do? Nothing at all. And Chris Paul, he gets injured at the worst possible times. Game 5, Houston against Golden State. Oh, they're going up 3-2. Same game, Chris Paul, injured, out. Game 6, out. Game 7, done, dead, buried, gone, forever after that. Goes to Phoenix. Oh, Chris Paul's finally reached the pinnacle of the top of the mountain, possibly. He could win a championship. Falls flat on his face after the first 2 games. And then the last 2 years with Phoenix, injured, doesn't show up, when it matters the most. Gets run off the court in Game 7 against Dallas, and then the next year against the eventual champion Nuggets, or a couple years later, the next year against Denver in Game 6, they get run off the court. Just pitiful. Absolutely pitiful. I mean, this just shows you right here, in my opinion, and I will stand by this. I don't care what Golden State fan says. You can have him all you want, but the facts are the facts. Chris Paul is a desperate man who wants an NBA championship next to his name. And honestly, if he wins this championship with Golden State this year, it honestly means absolutely nothing to me. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Whether we like the KD trade from 2016 or not, at least Durant was a huge contributing factor to those 2 championship teams with Golden State.
As a matter of fact, if Golden State does wind up winning the championship this upcoming season, the only thing that it's going to prove is the fact that Chris Paul can finally say, "Ooh, I finally got me a ring. Whoop-de-doo." Please. It ain't going to mean absolutely nothing other than that. And even if he does get his ring next season playing for Golden State, he's not going to be a key factor. Because if he hasn't been a key factor in these past few seasons, then what makes everybody think he's going to be a key factor this season, playing with Steph Curry, Klay Thompson, and more likely than not, Draymond Green and Andrew Wiggins? I mean, no. It's not going to prove anything.
That's true, and I don't like this trade at all. I mean, it makes no sense to me. I mean, Jordan Poole is a huge cancer. You know, he had a great NBA Finals 2 years ago against the Celtics, hitting those critical shots in important games in Game 2 and Game 3, respectively. Or, I mean, Game 2 and Game 5. Game 5.
Yes.
Those shots that he hit were crazy shots. And Jordan Poole was consistent 2 years ago against the Grizzlies, against the Mavericks, against the Celtics.
Absolutely, but the one thing that doomed Jordan Poole was the fact that, yeah, he had those great games in the playoffs, but, and here's the big point, when Jordan Poole had those big games in the playoffs in the NBA Finals a couple years ago, he thought he was the star. He thought that he was going to be the player that everybody was going to be looking up to. He thought he was worldwide famous. I mean, he thought that he was going to be the best player in the NBA for years to come. He let all that attention and all that ego go to his head. And that is when he started becoming a cancer. Because players like Steph Curry and Klay Thompson, they've lit it up since they were they've lit it up since they both came into the NBA. Steph back in 2009 and Klay back in 2011. They were lighting up teams with point totals such as 40, 45, 50, 55, 60. They were lighting it up when it comes to, but they were lighting it up on teams. But did you see Steph Curry and Klay Thompson grow a huge ego? No, you didn't.
No, absolutely not.
Absolutely not, because Steph and Klay, they were amazing players who knew how to build team chemistry. They didn't have to have an ego to prove to everybody that they were an amazing two amazing players on the court. They didn't need to, because they knew that if they stayed together and kept all the chaos out of the locker room, then they would be just fine. And to this day, they are still just fine. But Jordan Poole had 2 games in the NBA Finals against the Celtics a couple years ago where he just completely went off, and then he let that ego and that confidence, which is sometimes
and don't forget the contract.
And the contract, yes, thank you, the contract. He let all of that get to his head to where he was like, oh yeah, I'm going to surpass Steph Curry, I'm going to surpass Klay, I'm going to surpass Draymond, I'm going to be the leader of this Golden State Warriors organization. Ain't nobody going to touch me. And now, back in the offseason, he gets into an altercation with Draymond Green, where Draymond Green punches him in the Warriors practice team facility. And now this past offseason, Where was that amazing Jordan Poole player that he had those two great games in the NBA Finals? Oh, that's right. He was nowhere to be found. Nowhere to be found. Because that altercation with Draymond, it knocked that ego, it knocked that confidence, it knocked that contract, it knocked that playmaking ability out of him to the point where Jordan Poole became an absolute cancer in the locker room, and everybody wanted him gone. Steph Curry.
Everybody.
Yeah, Steph Curry, Klay Thompson, Draymond, Andrew Wiggins. Heck, even Steve Kerr wanted him gone. He may not have. He may not have
said it outright, but he was basically saying, "We want you gone. Get the hell out of here."
Exactly, because we don't want players like that in this locker room. And coming from a player such as Steve Kerr, who, may I remind everybody out there, in case you don't remember, he was a part of those 1990s championship teams from Chicago when he played for Michael Jordan and Scottie Pippen and John Paxson and Dennis Rodman. He was
and also as well,
teams.
he was with San Antonio for that one champion.
Yep,
those two championship teams that he won.
He was with San Antonio for those 2 years that they won the championships. So Steve Kerr, he knows what he's talking about. And if he is going to be the head coach of a team, and if he's going to make the decision to where he doesn't want egotistical cancer players like Jordan Poole in the locker room, yeah, he may not ever come out and say it directly to reporters and media, but in his mind, he's like, yeah, we don't want players like that. I don't want players like that in my locker room. Pack your bags and get the hell out of here because we don't want you. We don't need you. Good riddance. Bye. See you later.
Yep. And, and just to add to that as well, I mean, last year when all these reports were coming out, when this altercation happened, I said it in our Facebook chat and in our private chat, and I also said it on the show. I thought Green was wrong for what he did, but now that we know all the details and all the things that came out about Jordan Poole, just how he's been the last several months. And when Mike has been on here with us, we've asked him about it, about what are your thoughts on this team, with Jordan Poole. And he said it, we've all said it. And even Kevin, who's a lifelong, Warriors fan since Steph was drafted, just Jordan Poole is a huge cancer and he needed to be cut out and dealt with and cut out. And when you look at the big picture, he wasn't showing up. And I really think that at the time I think at the time Draymond, I was like, he was wrong for punching him. Draymond's a problem. He needs to be gone. No. And, honestly, now that seeing all the reports and stuff, Draymond, I hate to say it, but Draymond was right. Even though he was wrong, even though it was a wrong move to punch your fellow teammate, but at the same time, I get it. He's a pistol, he just comes at you, and he's like that annoying, little brother or cousin, that won't leave you the hell alone, or he's like a little bug, little fly, that little critter that won't go away. And the more he keeps picking at you, the more you're going to snap back at him. And that's what Jordan Poole did to Draymond Green and the rest of this Golden State team. I mean, I didn't agree with it at the time, but now that all the reports and all that stuff that has came out about how Poole has just declined and the way he's carried himself, and now he's demanding this and demanding that, dude. Like the old saying goes, money talks and bullshit walks. And Jordan Poole's ego is bigger than the state of California. And California is a big state. He had to be dealt and cut out. And he was, rightly so. He's gone. And even Kevin has said on this show multiple times that Jordan Poole needs to go. Jordan Poole needs to go. He has said this numerous of times on this show and in our private chats that Jordan Poole needs to be cut out of this locker room, out of this team, because he will cause the main core of Steph, Klay, Draymond possibly to leave. And it's bad when after 1 year of you helping this team winning an NBA championship, and after getting paid that maximum contract, Kevin said on this show when Golden State won the championship against the Celtics, he said that Jordan Poole, along with Andrew Wiggins, was the future for this team when Steph and Clay are gone. And boy, had the times have quickly changed.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I just don't know what more we can say other than the fact that Jordan Poole, like I said, he let that contract, he let that ego, he let that confidence, he let those 2 good games go to his head to the point where he thought he was absolutely going to be untouchable. But he got the talent knocked out of him after that punch by Draymond.
Oh, yeah.
Because of that, he became even more of a cancer. He became more egotistical. And because of that, he just could not muster up anything to be even close to that amazing player that we saw back in the NBA Finals a couple years ago.
Yep. And real quick, we are live right now here on the sports show here on a special Wednesday. And right now on AEW Dynamite, what a hell of a match that is happening right now between Jon Moxley and Ishii kicking off Dynamite tonight. Man, these two guys are beating the hell out of each other. This is fantastic. I mean, just
wow.
Really good match. And this is the beauty of being on Wednesday sometimes is we are live right now when Dynamite is going on. Death Rider right there. And by Moxley, let's see, can he pick up the victory? No, kick out by Ishii. Again, folks, I mean, this is awesome. You know, we're live right here on the sports show doing this and also checking out Dynamite simultaneously. This is awesome. And getting back to the conversation here, I mean, let's be honest. I mean, Jordan Poole, getting back to the conversation at hand, during the Western Conference playoffs with Golden State this year, against the Lakers, against the against the Kings, especially against the Kings. Good God, especially against the Kings. He did not show up. He did not show up. Half the time he didn't even show up. And there's a Death Rider again by Moxley. This has to be it. 2, 3. That's it. And Moxley picks up the victory. Anyways, I mean, that Sacramento team almost beat Golden State in 7 games. Almost. But it took a Stephen Curry Chicken McNugget 50-piece game to win that series in 7. Because Steph knew at that point that, well, Clay's in a shooter slump. Draymond's not going to score a lot of points. Especially Jordan Poole is inconsistent as hell. And Andrew Wiggins was dealing with the things he was dealing with, and he came back, too little too late. But Jordan Poole it's been said numerous of times, but he had to be dealt with. And I'm glad that Golden State got rid of him. But at what cost? Because now you have Chris Paul coming to this team. And obviously, Chris Paul is not going to be a starter because Clay and Steph are the starting backcourt. I mean, Chris Paul is going to be a role player for the first time in his, 17th plus year career. And that's crazy to say. But it's true.
And see, and what makes this even more interesting is the fact that, yes, Chris Paul is going to be a role player, finally, ever since he first came into the NBA back when he played for the New Orleans Hornets.
Mm-hmm.
But, I mean, Chris Paul, at this point, he's going to be lucky if he even smells the starting lineup for half or even 3/4 of the Warriors' games this season. Because as long as Steph and Klay Thompson stay healthy, they're going to be the starting guards over Chris Paul. Chris Paul's going to be nothing more than a bench player, in my opinion. And that's what
Yep.
makes this trade even more despicable and sickening. It's the fact that the Warriors already have 2 elite point guards. Yeah, I mean 2 elite guards in general. So yeah, I mean, excuse me. Yeah, it's always best to have a good backup, but when it's a washed up guard like Chris Paul, who thinks he's going to come into Golden State and try to be a team leader, when he has Steph and Clay and Andrew Wiggins and Draymond whenever he comes back, because we all know Draymond's going to come back. Yeah, when he is in that environment, yeah, he's going to be a role player, but he's not going to be in a lot of starting lineups as long as Steph and Clay stay healthy.
Yep. I mean, when you look at the situation that is fixing to be upon us with this Golden State organization, is Chris Paul knows that he is at the end of his career. He's at the end of his road in the NBA. And a desperate man will result to desperate measures. And that's what Chris Paul is doing right now. He wants a championship.
Yep. But I mean, I'm really looking forward to seeing what Kevin's gonna say once he comes back on the show in a couple weeks. I'm looking forward to that, because Kevin's gonna have some choice words to say, or as a matter of fact, we all know Kevin's gonna rant. And if there's one thing that Kevin knows how to do, it's rant. So you better believe we're gonna see it happen in 2 weeks whenever Kevin comes back on the show.
Oh, yeah, because when we come back on this show in a couple weeks, Kevin's going to have some very interesting comments on the situation with Golden State.
Oh, yeah. And I'm looking forward to it.
Oh, this is fantastic. Adam Cole, MJF backstage segment, just their interaction was just freaking hilarious. And MJF just showed Adam Cole merch, and the merch says "Better Than You, Baby." Available on ShopAW.
Oh, and keep in mind the announcement that came last week on AEW, in which MJF and Adam Cole are going to be forced to team up in that tag team tournament. My God!
And for those keeping score, it's called the Blind Tournament, the Blind Tag Team Tournament. That was fantastic. Again, folks.
Who would have thought that the first 2 names that Tony Schiavone would have drawn would be MJF and Adam Cole?
Oh, that was fantastic! I love that segment right there.
Oh, that was fantastic.
Again, folks, we are live right now on Wednesday during AEW Dynamite as it is happening right now in Canada once again after a hell of a pay-per-view in Toronto, Ontario, Canada at the Scotiabank Arena in Toronto with AEW and New Japan Pro Wrestling joined forces to put on the second Forbidden Door pay-per-view, and it was a great pay-per-view. Highlighted by Okada versus the American Dragon, Bryan Danielson, in a hell of a main event, and also for the IWGP United States Heavyweight Championship, Kenny Omega and Will Ospreay absolutely delivered the goods.
They delivered. They tore the house down like they
Judas Priest reference right there. Deliver the goods right there for you, baby. That was a hell of a match between Ospreay and Omega. And
which of course saw Ospreay get the pinfall to win his second IWGP United States Heavyweight Championship.
Yes, and if you have not seen any of these 2 matches, then what the hell are you waiting for? Go check out Ospreay and Omega in Japan, and then check out this past Sunday in Toronto, round number 2.
And especially that main event between Bryan Danielson and Okada, in which Bryan Danielson suffered a complete break or a complete arm fracture with part of the bone completely torn off.
And he still finished the match.
And he was able to wrestle 10 more minutes after that. And not only just wrestle 10 more minutes, but even get the win over Okada.
And
That was the insane part.
And my favorite part of this pay-per-view was Danielson coming out to his longtime ROH theme song, The Final Countdown by Europe. That was amazing.
Yes.
Very cool. Very cool. And again, if you have not seen this pay-per-view, go check it out. It's a hell of a show. And again, folks, we are live. Like I said, we are live during AEW Dynamite right now. John Moxley just wrestled Ishii in the opening contest, and Adam Cole and MJF has had their backstage segment. And I love that merch. Better Than You, baby. Available at AEWshop.com.
Oh,
yes.
And speaking of wrestlers coming out to their original theme songs, I do want to bring this up real quick. How about Baron Corbin last night bringing back his lone wolf gimmick in a losing effort to Carmelo Hayes last night during NXT Gold Rush? I mean, when I saw that he came out to his lone wolf gimmick, I was like, yes, this is the Baron Corbin that I actually liked. This is the Baron Corbin that we need. Hands down.
So yeah, this is really fun doing this, for once on a Wednesday, and a lot of fun. But this off season for the NBA is already in a frenzy, and who knows what's going to happen.
And especially with NBA free agency starting in not 1 but 2 days.
Yep. Usually
free agency start in 2 days in the NBA.
Yep. So we shall see what happens. And once again, folks, like I said, we will not be live next week, but don't you worry. Don't you worry. When we come back on July 11th, we are going to be action-packed full of news from the rest of this week, next week, and into the next week, because who knows what's going to happen in the NBA, in the NFL, in baseball, in hockey, whatever sport that may be, MMA, you name it, we will be on here talking about it. And it's going to be a very interesting show in a couple of weeks when we are back from the 4th of July holiday festivities. And now, getting back to this trade, I just think that when you look at the situation and how the season is going to go, I mean, I think Draymond, when he does test the free agency market, I think he is going to come back to Golden State, by hook or by crook. I just think that Golden State needs him because he is a huge contributing factor on their defensive side of the basketball. But Chris Paul is the interesting piece on this team because we know he's not going to be scoring like he can, at times when he was with Phoenix. He's going to be at best the 4th best player on this team. He's not going to be 2nd or even 1st at times during his career. He's going to be the 4th best player. Possibly 5th.
5th, exactly.
Best player. Because you got Steph, you got Clay, you got Draymond if he stays, and you got Andrew Wiggins.
Yeah. So, we shall see what happens.
Yes, we shall see.
We shall see.
Again, folks, before we move on, don't forget to follow us on Twitter at @ON_Sports Show, Facebook.com/Nation Sports Show, and where we are live right now on YouTube.com/Our Nation Sports Show. And don't forget to check out the Nation's Corner this Saturday night at the usual 7 p.m. Eastern, 6 Central, 4 p.m. Pacific Time, as the guys break all the action down from the world of professional wrestling, including AEW New Japan Pro Wrestling, bringing to you Forbidden Door from Toronto, Canada this past Sunday. A great pay-per-view.
Yes. And not to mention their recap of what's going to happen this Saturday from the O2 Arena in London, England.
Money in the Bank.
Yeah, just a little pay-per-view called Money in the Bank.
Yep, highlighted by both men and women's Money in the Bank matches.
Are going to have full analysis and a full recap of what's going to take place this Saturday at the O2 Arena for Money in the Bank.
Yep. Don't forget to follow the Nation's Corner on Twitter, at Nation's Corner, everywhere else on YouTube, Instagram, Facebook. It is at the Nation's Corner. And
Yes, just a little plug-in for just a little plug-in for Ezra here. Follow his group on Instagram, Too Sweet Cosplay. At Too Sweet Cosplay on Instagram and Twitter.
Yep.
And keep an eye out for future events that they're going to be taking part of.
Oh, because C2E2 over there in Chicago come August, and
That's
especially,
right.
Oh yeah, it's gonna be fascinating to see when that, who's gonna be coming down there, for cosplay and all that stuff, and all the big time wrestlers and athletes and stuff down there in Chicago. It'll be really interesting to see what happens. And so as far as with this Golden State team, when now they got Chris Paul, who do you think is maybe a player that they can sign for the bench? Because I really think they need another good bench, couple of bench players to make their team a little better this year. Because let's be honest, I mean, everybody was crying about who is that big guy that Kevin was talking about him, and Golden State fans were talking about him, how they wanted him to get more reps, and then when he was getting the reps, he wasn't doing so good. Like, to me, they need a better big man, on the bench. They need a couple of shooting guards or small forwards, to round up that bench and are really good. Because if Golden State can get another good quality bench, they can make another run at another championship.
Oh yeah, hands down.
But who do you think Golden State needs to fill out this bench?
Let me see. Let me pull up this list here. Let me see. I mean, obviously, obviously, Draymond Green is going to go. He's going to go back to Golden State.
Be shocked if he doesn't.
Just looking at a couple names here. Let's see. Who could Golden State look into to get?
What's up, William? How you doing, sir?
William, how's it going, sir? Hope you're having a great evening. Let's see. Trying to look at somebody. Give me just a second. I think I have a player in mind here. I just happen to see him somewhere. Oh yeah, here we go. Here's a player that Golden State could easily use. He may not be an absolute big man, but ever since he finally left that poisonous team called the Los Angeles Lakers, he's actually been able to make a small name for himself. And this is a player who I think Golden State could really use on their bench, Kyle Kuzma.
Yeah, he could be a good factor.
He could be a good factor. And there's a bunch of names out there, such as Mason Plumlee, Rory Hachimura, Jeff Green, Andre Drummond, who's been known to grab about 20 rebounds a game whenever he plays.
And Jeff Green just won a championship with Denver.
That's right. Let's see, Robin Lopez, heck, even Blake Griffin.
Sure.
I mean, all these players could be great role bench players for Golden State.
I just thought about this too, and this totally left me. Now it totally came back. We're talking about the draft and and how Henderson was drafted by Portland as the number 3 overall pick. And Damian Lillard, obviously, back and forth. Because Kevin talked about this last week. We talked about this last week on the show that Damian Lillard has, made offers to possibly be traded. And we talked about this. If he gets traded, what will be his best, destination? And I think Miami is his best destination, to be the lead guy.
Yes. Just imagine if Damian Lillard were to leave Portland and go to Miami. Can you say NBA Finals team once again?
Yes, please.
Because, I mean, think about it. Miami, they even though they were without Tyler Hero and Victor Oladipo this entire postseason, just about, they still made it to the NBA Finals.
Yep.
With players such as Max Strus, Gabe Vincent, Duncan Robinson, along with Jimmy G, Gets Buckets, Butler. So imagine adding Damian Lillard to that mix. Oh,
That's a championship team right there.
That's definitely a championship team. Definitely. Not even close.
And at worst for Miami, you're going to have the report would be they would have to send Duncan Robinson in that package. But at the same time, you still got Hero, you still got Oladipo, you still got Strus, and you still got Vincent. Those are hell of a role players.
Yep.
And if Lillard does go to Miami, I think it'd be good for him because he can finally go to a team that can actually win. And they have a culture down there because their exposure coach Spo is one of the greatest coaches in basketball.
Yep.
Won those championships with Miami. He's been to multiple, countless NBA Finals appearances with Miami.
Yes, see, and just in case Golden State can miss out on Kyle Kuzma.
Good call there, William. Real quick, he said Damian needs to go to where where he's going to be good in the pressure, Miami or Philadelphia. Yeah, I could see Philadelphia. Yep. But at the same time, I think Miami is the better selection because I just think that Miami overall just has the more consistent pieces. And they have the stamina to go places because obviously Joel Embiid, for Philadelphia this past season, he was just gassed. He was burnt, and yeah.
Absolutely. But there are two key players that Golden State could also have their eyes on when it comes to having elite players form part of their starting lineup once again, just in case if any one of them needs to have like a good bench player or even a good star player to play alongside. There are two players that I think Golden State could easily have their eyes on.
Who's that?
Number one, a former player who used to play for Golden State a couple years ago, Harrison Barnes.
Mm-hmm.
And number two, even though I am about 97, 98% sure it's not going to happen, imagine if Golden State were to sign a player by the name of Chris Middleton.
Ooh, I forgot about Middleton. He is a free agent. That's right.
Just imagine if Golden State were to sign Chris Middleton.
Chris Middleton is a great number 2 overall player. But that's what's crazy. If he does go to Golden State, dude.
I mean, just imagine just imagine this starting lineup. Steph Curry, Klay Thompson, Chris Middleton, Andrew Wiggins, Draymond Green. Holy cow.
I love it.
Holy cow.
Because Middleton is a dangerous shooter himself. He can light you up in mid-range, most importantly. But that three-pointer, when he gets that mid-range J going, watch out.
Watch out. Exactly. Exactamundo.
Crazy. I mean, because clearly when he was out, and when Giannis was out multiple times, Milwaukee just wasn't the same team. But, dude, not just Golden State, but I just thought about this too. It's a long shot in the dark, but what the hell? What if Middleton goes to Denver?
Oh,
yeah.
To play with Nikola Jokic and Jamal Murray.
I said it. Yep.
Oh my Oh
At
goodness.
8:41 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, I just dropped the bomb. Boom, there you go. Boom.
Yep. Yep. Oh, and here's another thing. Just in case.
Ooh, real quick, Joey, go give your thought real quick, and then I'll go what William said in the chat. Go ahead.
I'm gonna say just in case Damian Lillard doesn't go to Miami. Imagine if Miami were to sign Chris Middleton.
Yeah, that could happen. And also, what about this scenario that William just threw out there in the chat? What if Damian Lillard goes to the Celtics?
Nah, that wouldn't work.
Nah, I don't think it would work either because you'll have three massive egos clashing, with Tatum and Brown and Lillard. Yeah, I don't.
I understand the thought process behind that statement,
get it,
but having three huge egos like that, no, I'm sorry, but
I like the idea. Considering I am a Celtics fan, William, but I don't think it's going to work.
Now, if Jaylen Brown could move on from Boston, I could see it potentially happen. But Brad Stevens and Brad Stevens has done Jaylen Brown.
Even if Jaylen Brown gets dealt away and they get Lillard, if they did, I still don't think it's going to work because you need more than just the two star players. You need the role players. That's why the bench is very critical in the NBA because look at all the great championship teams that have won championships. That Miami team from 2013, the Celtics team from 2008, those Spurs teams, 03, 05, 07, 13, 14. That won the championships. And then you got the Golden State team from 15, this past team from 22, the Milwaukee team from 21, Denver from this year. All of these great teams have Dallas from 2011. How can we forget about that Mavericks team? The Chicago team from the 90s, the Celtics in the 80s, Lakers from the 80s. All of these teams at some shape or form have had great star players, and obviously can't forget about those Kobe, Shaq, Laker teams.
You cannot forget about Kobe and Shaq.
All the great teams in the NBA that have won championships have had one or two star players, even maybe three star players, and a great supporting bench cast. And that is the key to winning an NBA championship in this day and age. It's two star players and a great bench and a great bench.
Yep.
That is true. They could get rid of a couple of players and and could get Lillard to Boston. Yep, that could happen.
Yeah, I mean it could happen, but it's still I don't think it would still work.
No, I don't think it would work.
Nah. But like I said, NBA free agency start up in 2 days, so who knows what will happen. And trust me when I say that over the next coming weeks, as NBA free agency will unfold, we will have top-notch storylines coming in, and we're going to be talking about it here in the next few weeks here on our Nation Sports Show. Yep. And plus, keep in mind, we are just about to go into the month of July, which means we are getting ever so closer to yet another amazing season of professional football coming around. And you better believe we're going to have top-notch coverage on the NFL regular season coming up in just about a month and a half.
Yep, we are ever so close to football. And obviously, don't forget, folks, when we get towards the end of July, early August, whenever that happens, we will be doing our usual breaking down each conference's divisions. We're doing them in 2 divisions per episode. So keep that in mind. We will be doing that like we have been doing for the past 2 seasons. And looking forward to football coming back. It's slowly around the corner.
And plus, with all of us here at our Nation Sports Show, and maybe and hopefully Randy, whenever he decides to come back full time, we will have our second prediction battle of the season. So we'll see if Mr. Kevin Roy can repeat after winning the prediction battle last season.
Yep.
So it'll be interesting. But I do want to point out one thing that is not interesting, and I actually kind of feel sorry for is the entire state of Florida, because I actually happened to come across this actually yesterday when I was surfing around through Facebook. Florida has had a ton of bad luck when it comes to sports teams as of late, because
Yeah,
look at this. Listen to this. The Miami Heat lost the NBA Finals. The Florida Panthers lost the Stanley Cup Final. The Florida Atlantic Owls and the Miami Hurricanes lost in the Final Four of the basketball tournament. And now the Florida Gators men's baseball team lost the men's college World Series to LSU.
crazy.
0-5 this season, this year already, when it comes to championship series.
You can't make this up.
No, you can't.
Because
0-5.
everybody in the NBA, everybody in the NHL threw up the scenario, okay, what if the Panthers and the Heat and their respective sports win their two major championship series? Did not happen. Both bowed out in 5.
That's right. So, I mean, yeah, when it comes to sports, no lead is safe, and you cannot make any of this stuff up.
Nope. As Rasheed Wallace once said, ball don't lie.
That's right. So, yeah.
Yep. That's it's kind of like the Madden curse there, huh? Florida's in their own little curse.
Something like that.
And Florida was a dominant men's college baseball team all year long, and then boom, get beat.
Yeah. But I think that's pretty much it from my side of things. I mean, there's not really much to talk about baseball other than the fact that the Braves are absolutely tearing it up right now. Winning once again today to complete a 3-game sweep of the Minnesota Twins, winning 5 games in a row and winning 12 out of their last 13. So
that's good.
I mean, yeah, the Braves are looking really good. The Rays are always looking good. Mongrovian Mike, if you're out there watching this, I'm sorry about your Mets, but they are just absolute garbage this season, and I don't know if they're going to be able to come back and even try to make a splash when it comes to this regular season. But yeah, that's pretty much it. That's pretty much all I got for tonight.
Yeah, I can't really think of anything else off the top of my head, but I will say this again real quick before we close the show. Don't forget, if you are in the Oakland area, July 25th, mark it down. Save the Bay. It is the San Francisco Giants taking on the Oakland Athletics, not just only in a baseball game, but more importantly, on that date, July 25th, 2023, San Francisco, Oakland fans will come together for one night only, and they will protest, give their honest thoughts with signs, with shirts, just different things like that, to protest their displeasure, their anger towards John Fisher and the Dave Cavill, the team owner and team president, respectively, of the Oakland Athletics, and they want to send the team to Las Vegas. And all of us here on the sports show, along with all of the Oakland A's fans from around the world, we support all of you guys out there fighting this corrupt battle against these two complete jackasses that are obviously for all nothing about money. And
absolutely. And imagine if just Oakland fans came out in the 20,000s for that one night. Imagine what it's going to be like when San Francisco and Oakland A's fans come out. We could be pushing 40,000 fans.
You know what? I was just thinking about that too. Like, I think it was like 27, 30 plus thousand people. Like 26, 27,000 tickets were sold and then several walk-ups. But you had over 30,000 people in the Coliseum on June 13th for that round of protesting.
Yes,
could you imagine? We could be
approaching 50, 55, even 60,000 people.
Yeah, it could happen. And it will
It
happen.
could happen. You never know.
It will happen as far as the A's and Giants fans coming together. But could you imagine all of these fans from around the Bay Area are going to reunite under one stadium, and they're going to protest, rightly
Absolutely.
so, against John Fisher, against Dave Cavill. So once again, shout outs to our boy HiJacker Mike, and also shout outs to Gabriel, and shout outs to Hal, the hot dog dude, and of course the boss, and everybody out there in Oakland land who has been supporting the Athletics through all the good, the bad, and the downright ugly, supporting this team, supporting each other. And that's what I love to see, is brothers and sisters coming together to support each other.
Absolutely.
And it's been awesome tonight, talking about a little bit of NFL, with this Tyreek Hill situation, what's going to happen with that. I mean, who knows? I mean, it could be interesting. He could be suspended. Hell, again, like I said, we'll never know until 2 weeks from now.
We'll never know, but yeah, that's pretty much going to be it for me tonight. So hope you guys enjoy the rest of your week. Enjoy the sports that's coming up. Enjoy the wrestling that's going to be coming on this weekend, especially Money in the Bank Saturday night.
Highlighted by the two women and men Money in the Bank ladder matches, and also Cody Rhodes taking on Dominic Mysterio.
Yep. Ronda Rousey and Shayna Baszler defending the titles against Liv Morgan and Raquel Rodriguez,
and obviously Sikoa Roman versus
Bloodline Civil War. The Usos versus Roman Reigns and Solo Sikoa. So no matter where you are, if you are a WWE fan, you are going to want to tune in to Money in the Bank, because you're going to see a Bloodline Civil War.
And shout outs to all the great fans in the United Kingdom that are going to be there representing their country. And I know beyond a shadow of a doubt that the United Kingdom wrestling crowd is going to show everybody out there how they get down. Because
That's right, because we saw it happen at Clash at the Castle last year.
Yep.
So you better believe we're going to see it here at the O2 in London.
Yep.
Yep, that's it for me tonight. Y'all enjoy the sports, enjoy the wrestling. Steven, close it out, brother.
Yep. As always, William, Big T, thank you, gentlemen, for being in the chat tonight. And we love and appreciate everybody out there that has watched this tonight live, and all those that will watch this afterwards. That this is going to be on our channel as always. Don't forget to like and subscribe to our YouTube channel at youtube.com/Our Nation Sports Show. And also don't forget to follow the Nation's Corner on Twitter at Nation's Corner. Everywhere else on YouTube, Instagram, it is at the Nation's Corner. And everybody, enjoy the wrestling this weekend for Money in the Bank on Saturday afternoon. That is just crazy to even say. Not Saturday night, Saturday afternoon. You got Money in the Bank happening in London. And then on Saturday, you got AEW Collision happening. And man, just these first two Collision episodes have been absolutely fan-freaking-tastic. And speaking of fan-freaking-tastic, AEW and New Japan Pro Wrestling came together on Sunday night in Toronto at the Scotiabank Arena in Toronto, Ontario, Canada, to bring one of the best pay-per-views of this year, highlighted at Forbidden Door by Will Ospreay, taking on Kenny Omega for round 2, Electric Boogaloo, for the IWGP United States Heavyweight Championship in an absolute banger of a match. And obviously the American Dragon, Bryan Danielson, taking on Okada in the main event. And again, shout outs to Danielson for continuing that match with that fractured arm, partially being, torn and stuff. And he'll be out for 6 to 8 weeks. And we wish Danielson a speedy recovery during his recovery time. But what a hell of a warrior. And also, again, how freaking badass was that on Sunday with Danielson coming out to the final countdown by Europe in Toronto. That was awesome. And speaking of awesome, thank you to Joey for joining me tonight, brother. Again, to William out there, to Big T in the chat, and everybody watching this afterwards as this goes on our YouTube channel. Thank you, everybody out there. Thank you, obviously, to the Nation's Corner crew, all of us here on the Sports Show crew. Once again, as a quick reminder, we will not be live next Tuesday, as we will be celebrating the 4th of July with our family and our friends, and we will be back on July 11th at our normally scheduled start time and day, 7 p.m. Eastern, 6 Central, 4 p.m. Pacific time on Tuesday, July 11th. And with that being said, for Joey Thornton, JT, Joey Thornton, not Justin Timberlake, sorry, ladies. I have been your host for this evening, Stephen Wyand. So with that being said, for me, Stephen Wyand, Joey Thornton, Randy Gyron, Kevin Rory, and Ezra Vicker, and everybody out there, and the Nation's Corner crew, and here on the Sports Show crew, we say thank you for tuning into our Nation Sports Show here tonight. Enjoy the rest of the week with all the sports going on. Enjoy the wrestling, and most importantly, next week, on the 4th of July weekend festivities. Enjoy your time with family and friends. Take care, everybody. Peace.